Well, let's get into these episodes. 3 episodes to cover, starting with episode 10. We're recording this on a Tuesday morning, so we don't know what the fan reaction is. I think it'll be pretty positive, but maybe not as rapturous as the last batch of episodes. I think we all agree there. Episode 10, kind of a bottle-ish episode in the sense that it is about two characters. Andor is not in this episode at all. Bix is not in this episode. It's really focused on Luthen and Clea. And we've been wondering, what is Luthen's story? We get it here. I'm very curious if you guys like the amount we get or not, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's just start off with walking through the episode chronologically. I love this classic espionage moment between Lonnie and Luthen, where Lonnie is very paranoid. Guy's got a hard job. And he shares this insane information with Luthen, basically about the Death Star. Like we mentioned, the key to Star Wars starts here. And I'm curious what you guys thought of this scene, especially knowing that by the scene's end, Luthen kills Lonnie. And if you saw that coming at all, if you were surprised by that, if that's just in line with Luthen's way.
I thought the opening was fantastic, and it kind of just gets you right into the mood of what these final 3 episodes are. It's kind of like the fast-paced, okay, we're finally getting to what the point of all of this has been and what, Luthen's really been building towards. And I thought the 2 actors were putting on, like, masterclass here. It was awesome, and I kind of got lulled into Luthen's spell here. Like,
I did too.
I feel so stupid that even after 24 episodes of this show or whatever it's been, that Luthen still gets my ass.
It's
and
the
I'm like,
eyes. It's the kind eyes that
I'm like, maybe he's got it. Like, maybe he's like, oh, maybe he's having his realization where he's like, all of us can go together at this point. Like, we can all get to Yavin. Like, now how silly that sounds.
That's the exact word when he knows he's going to kill Lonnie.
That's
when he
like,
says
after
Yavin.
The scene ends, I agreed. Because, like, initially I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe he's been, like, shuttling people there, like, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's, like, fabricating something in my mind. But the second that he says Yavin and I thought about it more once the scene's over, I was like, yeah, that's the kill word.
Lonnie says, where can I take my wife and daughter? And Luthen pauses. He says, Yavin. And then he says, tell me about the weapon. Like, so sweet, And by scene's end, Lonnie is getting discovered by some space critter dog in the park. Dead, blaster shot through the heart.
So was Lonnie going to betray them?
I think the risk of just giving the info through torture or whatever is just too high for Luthen, and he wanted to take care of this and prevent any issue.
Why not just say any other place? Why not just have the conversation without the risk? Like, you could have just made something up. You know what I mean?
I think because maybe, like, there's, like, this legend place that no one knows about that, like, he could have said any, like, known world or something, but maybe because he just knows he's going to kill him anyway, that, like, Yavin has...
Well, it's also funny that Luthen says Yavin because we learn later that he is, besides the actual Empire, he is persona non grata there. Like, no one wants him there. Luthen was never going to show up on Yavin. And we see when Clea does, she does not get any proper treatment either. So I think it's just a fabrication, but I felt bad for Lonnie. He really has been through it. We can imagine in the past 5 years. And that's another character, Dan. Like, if this show was longer, like, that could have been so fleshed out. I'm so curious how he stole so much information from ISB all this time.
I think this is like a genuinely evil act from Luthen. Like, almost, I would say completely indefensible, like, given the amount that person sacrificed.
Mm-hmm.
I love Luthen as a character. I'd want him on my side. I've been pretty harsh on him, and I've had a lot of pushback because I've said things like he's a sociopath, like he is selfish. He does, like, a lot of what he does is about ego. He doesn't want to work with other people. Like, he doesn't want to be part of, like, he does this stuff, I think, for the thrill of it almost. And I get so much pushback, and I'm like, are y'all watching this man operate? Like, this guy is relatively evil, and it's really just about himself and Clea. And I think, like, that might be, he's kind of a, like, product of his environment and what he's seen, but, like, that's who he is. And I think there's a reason, like, he was self-destructive in a way where, like, he could have just gone and been part of it and, like, worked with other people and not been an asshole. But, like, he has to be himself, and he has this flair of, like, the dramatic, and I feel like he almost, like, enjoys putting himself in danger and being there right under their nose. Like I feel like he gets off on that.
Yeah,
And that's what you get in the end. Like exactly what you asked for.
Dan, I loved the conversation you had on the Goodwill podcast about Cecil from Invincible and Luthen.
They're not the same.
I agree, and I don't know if the listeners here are, if Andor listeners are the same as Invincible, but they're both phenomenal shows for anyone listening. But there are two characters on each show that kind of toe the line, but I think acts like this from Luthen really just push him over the edge of like,
Cecil
this man
will not do that. No.
There's no honor there.
I really love the filmmaking after this moment, and I think we should shout out the director, Alonso Ruiz Palacios, who is stepping into Andor and adding to me like a more frenetic style. And if you watch espionage movies, they love to use Dutch angles and canted angles and overhead shots, and I feel like Alonso Ruiz Palacios had a lot of fun doing that, showing you that at least on Coruscant, things are as hectic as ever. Dan, did you see La Cocina by any chance?
Oh, I hated it.
Okay, this is his movie.
I really, really didn't like that movie.
What about the filmmaking within it?
The filmmaking, I think, was good, right? I think that would be the highlight of that. I don't want to get into that because I really, really dislike that movie. But I liked what he was doing here. I also think, like, kind of like we talked about, everything about this, from the storytelling to the direct, like, everyone has a huge task in following up those episodes. Like, that's a lot of pressure. I think the direction was definitely good. There was no like drop off or anything. And I like the way the conversation was done where you didn't quite know what happened and then you get the reveal. That was definitely cool, I think.
We'll talk about La Cocina off mic.
With the Loth cat, by the way, you said that the space creature, that is a Loth cat or a Loth dog. I didn't even know they were on Coruscant, but
Thank
there you go. Some lore drop.
Let's talk about Luthen and Dedra. So Luthen returns to his shop. He's burning the comms with this really cool, like, mercury liquid. He gives Clea the info. She recites it in this panic and keeps it and keeps herself in this safe house. Luthen's destroying the comms. Entering his shop is Dedra Miro. Now, they have not met before, I don't believe. But they both have been circling each other, smelling each other's tails, or butts, I should say, like dogs. Luthen has known about Dedra, for sure, for 5 years. But for Dedra, Luthen is Axis, and she's put it together, but way too late. After they kind of talk around each other, she drops the Starpath unit on the table and says, I got you. But does she? Because Luthen's been a few steps ahead. What did you guys think of this scene, this interaction? Two very different people, Luthen and Dedra, that have very different worldviews. What did you guys think about this moment?
One thing I really liked is when she came in, she said, is everything real? And he said, there's two pieces of questionable providence in the gallery. And I thought that was funny because, like, obviously they're both putting on a fucking show. I really like this scene. There's some stuff about it that I just found to be silly. I think, first of all, I think he cracks way too early. There's no reason to fold when she shows him that. I think he could have at least tried to maintain some type of innocence. Like, for someone who's always thinking ahead and seems to have a plan, what is his plan there? And, like, I think even if you are going to go ahead with it, like, you know, kill her with a knife and shoot yourself. Like, fight until you die. Like, do something. Like, I don't understand him just kind of giving in, and then he stabs him. Like, if you want to, like, this is dark, but, like, he could have slit his throat. Like, he stabs himself in the chest. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, it's...
I thought the same thing.
And to the scene.
From Dedra's angle, I thought she was kind of dumb, too, in the sense that she was monologuing. She got caught monologuing when she could have arrested him on the spot. For what it creates in terms of the next sequence, I think it's worth it. But I did like their delicious dialogue between them. Her revulsion with Luthen is just insane. Like, she hates this man with everything inside her more than she hates the rebellion, I think.
Yeah, and he says there's a whole galaxy waiting to disgust you, which I thought was funny because he's like, this ship has sailed. I mean, he says, like, you know, the rebellion's no longer here. You know, like, basically, like, you can kill me, torture me, whatever, but, like, this has already happened. And I think he probably thinks the spark from Gorman or whatever has already been lit.
And I do think that even, like, he knows that kind of almost in his, like, dying breaths or what he wished were, that, like, he still is thinking that Yavin is kind of the key or the goal. Like in those moments where he was like, "Oh, the rebellion is every like we're everywhere now." Like they can't be reached. Like that's to me what he's referencing is like we have this whole planet that we've built of people that fucking despise you. Like this is happening whether I'm alive or dead, and even if those people hate him, like as Cassian says, like this entire show basically, like we should all be thanking Luthen because the only reason Yavin exists is because of him. So I thought that part of it was interesting. It was definitely theatrical, more so than normal, but we got some great dialogue, so I'll take it.
So the next part of the episode I want to talk about, it is woven in scene by scene, but I think we should just cover it as is, and that is the Luthen Clea flashbacks. And it starts off by Clea seeing Luthen going into this medical ship where he's put on a ventilator, and she flashes back to their earliest moments together. Now, I don't believe, besides season 1 and Andor, actually, and how he was found, we really haven't done much flashbacks in this show. What we see is that Clea was hiding out on a ship, and I want to hear your interpretation. This is mine. Clea was hiding out on a ship. The ship and its crew were some type of early Empire army that were laying waste to a native population. They were colonizers or soldiers or something. And Luthen was a sergeant, and he's got, it's not like stormtrooper garb, but it's some kind of brown shirt, pseudo-evil thing. And he's having a full-on mental breakdown and some PTSD from all the carnage that his group is likely committing. And that's when the two find each other. Is that your guys' read on this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like don't know if they were trying to say he was like Empire early days or part of just some raiding parties or some other type of government elsewhere. Like I think they're going to purposely leave that a little fluid. There are some like hardo YouTube accounts that I will go to quickly after these drop to see if there is any specifics there for like the crazy like Star Wars lore nerds. But yeah, I think there's really interesting angle to have him be attached to some type of military, I don't know, background and kind of just see him at the end of that. And like the sound design in this scene, man, like horrifying. Like it's just some real dark shit. And so I don't know, I thought it was a very interesting way. And I thought that was going to be it, by the way. I didn't realize we'd be getting flashbacks basically this whole episode. So I thought it was interesting.
Sergeant Lear is his name. And what is Lear backwards? It's rail.
Smart man. There you go. All you got to do is flip the letters back around.
The parallels between the way Mando was found, how Andor was found, do you guys like that it echoes that? Or is it kind of corny that you're kind of seeing the young ward found by the older person again and again?
That's all Star Wars, man. So, I mean, it fits, but I didn't think too much of it either way, I would say. The only thought I had, I mean, we talked a little bit about feeling like maybe there was some kind of romantic relationship.
I was going to let that go, Dan. We could have let that go. We didn't have to come back.
I gotta go there, man. Like, I guess we can just say they're just, it's a father-daughter thing. We'll leave it there, I guess. But I thought that was a little bit, maybe I just misread it previously. I don't know.
I think like they have I can't think of another show that's done this, but I know there have been because there's something in the back of my head that'll come to me. But like where the father-daughter relationship is more like less like it's not that it's not lovingly, but it's more like they're kind of just like big bro, little bro,
friends,
like,
yeah,
friends, and they just give each other shit and like they accept the shit from the other side, and like
there's a hardness to the relationship.
Yeah. She's like a little me of him, you know what I mean? Like it's so yeah. Once that came up, I was like, we were
and also
off the mark there, brother.
We can talk about it as we get into these flashbacks, but I think both are learning and taking from each other because young Clea is hard. She's hard at bargaining. She's just hardened and tough. So it's not like she became this under Luthen's tutelage. If anything, I thought that he took from her intensity. What she learned from him is patience, is subterfuge. She kind of drives straight ahead. He takes the long road. And I think that together they've formed an amazing unit because of what they bring to each other.
Like, I really liked seeing this Luthen and Clea-centric episode. I know, like, some people will be like, oh, in such a short show, they're going to do an episode that doesn't move the plot forward or, you know, overly or some stupid shit. But, like, this is the stuff I love, man. Like, you see, like, we've been basically begging for crumbs about who these people, who Luthen was or where he goes before Rogue One, and, like, anything about, like, how he is the way and why he is the way he is. And I thought, like, all of this was awesome. Like, I think you said that really well, where it's like she taught him some things and he taught her a lot of things, and together they just kind of built this from the ground up. And I loved all these little, like, the bargaining was great, and, like, him just saying, like, we are who we want to be whenever it's convenient, and all these little things, like, just planting the seeds of, like, slowly realizing that, like, they're both angry enough to do something about it, but they're trying to find the best way for each of them to help. So I don't know. Yeah. I thought they were great.
There's an interesting theme here about looking away versus looking at something directly in the eye. And it first comes up in the execution moment where everyone's shielding their eyes to this firing squad. And Clea, who's must be like 9 years old, 10 years old at the moment, just like stares right at it. You know, even Luthen walks away. And then it comes up again a little later when they're at the restaurant and he says, don't look at that, look at me. And I'm curious, what does that signify?
Yeah, I mean, what I took from that was if you're staring at something and then it happens, someone might, you know, maybe there's a video and they're going to say, why were you looking at that? Maybe it brings attention to him with the butt. Like, I think it's the idea of you need to react like everyone else reacts. And I think Luthen is like, everything about Luthen is about appearances and like blending in. And I think the most important thing he kind of gave to Clea was like, and it's in the conversation where basically he says, we're fighting to win, so we're going to lose repeatedly. And I feel like without meeting him, she would have died very young. She would have done something violent as a reaction. And
she would have been that little boy on the firing squad. We don't know if he's guilty of anything, but, you know.
Yeah, but she would have probably done something to get maybe instant revenge, and then she would have gotten killed. And those people don't survive. You need to be able to plan when you're up against it. And I think it made me think of a couple things, but I was thinking about Gladiator when Commodus is telling that story about the sea snake that allows something to come nibble at it, and it lies there and lies still. Like, to me, like, that's what Luthen does. Like, he just is willing to, you know, accept the pain and loss and then eventually land a blow that's, like, critical. And that's kind of how he approaches things. The other thing I wanted to say quickly was it also reminded me a little bit of, and going back to appearance, it was like a little bit of an HW Plainview thing from There Will Be Blood, where, like, he has this kid with him and it's very, like, disarming and he can kind of fit in. This is my daughter, you know, Clea. And I think it helps to kind of fit maybe like a disarming mold, but they're both actually very dangerous. I thought that was kind of funny.
I love that.
That's the comp that came to my head.
Sean, I'd love to know your thoughts about this because I feel like hate is a very important theme in Star Wars and the Sith. And here he references hate as a feeling. Luthen says to Clea, all you know is how much you hate. You bank that. You hide that. You keep it alive till you know what to do with it. Now, we think of Palpatine saying, good, let the hate flow through you, you know? And Luthen's kind of saying the opposite. He's like, let it stay inside you, change it, manipulate it, use it to your advantage. So I have to imagine the significance of that emotion was bandied about, talked about in the writer's room. And I think it's really intelligent how it's suggested here.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it kind of ties into like how Andor isn't just good versus bad. There's a lot of gray in the middle, and it's not just, you know, like Dan and I would say blue good, red bad. Like they're using hate for a positive thing, at least in their eyes and our eyes, because we're obviously not Team Empire. But I think like at least initially they do hate them, but it's not all just straight hate and violence, and like there is a core message of what they can accomplish with that. That I think is interesting. The Sith obviously don't think like that. That's a little bit more driven to a different angle. But I do think that the concept of like him having to hold back the reins on her, being like, we are going to accomplish a massive critical blow, like Dan just said, but like we can't do it now. Like we're not prepared. We don't even know what that blow is going to be yet. but they have to be ready for when the moment arrives. And so I just really like that scene.
The thing is, I think it's worth asking, like, is hate an effective or ideal motivator in the situation, or is hate tied to ego and everything else that gets Luthen killed? Like, that makes him ultimately ineffective in terms of winning a long-term war, where hope and, like, quote-unquote togetherness, which is literally the two key themes of the rebellion in Star Wars always, is being collaborative, diversity, like working with people that are different and have different skills and backgrounds, whatever, towards the same goal. Like, that's what Star Wars is about, not about hateful, egotistical individuals trying to win. Like, and I just feel like there's a lot of, I don't know. And I really like Luthen. I just think maybe there's more warning towards his character, especially with how he goes out. Like, in a very,
And I think, like,
silly way. Like,
I don't know, like the fact that he wasn't one to usher this across the finish line is telling. Like, it's not like Luthen doesn't get a happy ending. Like, maybe for him it kind of is, right? Like, he's like this is my moment. Like, this is my entire life. Clea and I have been building this. I'm killing myself now because to ensure that this continues. And I think, like, that's a cool point, Dan, where you're just like the evil and the hate, like, can't be the driving motivator here. And I kind of think that, like, to get big things to be accomplished, you kind of need people with different frames of thought. And maybe those people aren't always the ones that are going to help you, tell the final story or tell the narrative, which is we've seen in the last arc that even the rebels are trying to spin their own narratives and getting the positive hope message pushed out. So I think, yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think you're both right. It's fascinating. So they blow up this bridge in the flashback, which then cuts right to Clea blowing up these vehicles in the hospital in the present day. I loved everything at this hospital, this whole sequence. I just thought it was phenomenal. I loved, even before the action begins, Dedra showing just so little respect for the medical profession and just cursing out these doctors. So basically, Clea is going to sneak into this hospital to kill Luthen to ensure that he's not tortured, doesn't give up more information. Surprised he didn't have like a cyanide tooth or something like that. Make it easy. I love thriller scenes at hospitals. Just love it. Give me all of them. I thought of Breaking Bad. There's a great hospital moment. The Godfather has a classic one. Kill Bill. It's drawing a little bit on all of those, doing its own thing too. Clea sneaks in, uses that unlock tool to get the scrubs, which was a tiny little piece of production design, but I thought that was brilliant. And then starts wheeling E.T.'s grandma around to distract them, to let them know she's a nurse. As she's going about this, are you just locked in, like, fuck yeah, pull this off, Clea?
Yeah, dude, I was locked in. Like you said, the whole set design was great. Like the fact that it was like all just like open windows, you can kind of see everyone moving around and walking, and like the Empire around every single corner. Just the tension was great. Like any of these little, like, I don't know, like you just said, you mentioned a few episodes that do this well. They're always excellent. And for Clea to get like some very real shine by herself. I know she's had very good moments before, but this was like her, like, and we just saw how much Luthen meant to, like, we just finally found out who they were to each other. And like to finally understand the driving force between that relationship, it just made me want her to get there even more than I had prior.
Right, so. But isn't that also complicated, knowing that she's going to get there to kill her father effectively?
I think this is, I mean, they've probably talked about 30 ways of doing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's probably just like, I'm going to kill myself. And if I fail,
scenario.
You got to come kill me. Yeah. They're like, they're going to bring me to this hospital
scenario.
Yeah. Like they have all of this planned, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, how callous do you have to be to go kill your father figure? And I guess it's, it's probably gone at that point. And it's not like she shoots him in the head or anything, but yeah, it's still brutal.
Yeah. I feel like I think about most things in life as like just outcomes. Like there is no alternative, right? It's the best possible outcome for Luthen. So I feel like I didn't think it was that challenging her actually taking his life. I think there were a couple like darker ways this episode could have gone, and what I honestly thought they were going to do. And when they brought that flashback, I thought when she set off that bomb, it was basically going to be like an act of terrorism. Like I thought she might kill innocent people as a distraction, and like I was like, that's kind of crazy for them to go that direction, which they didn't end up doing. It just ended up being like transports or whatever. But like I kind of thought they were going to do that, and just kind of let the audience sit with that. But at the same time, it's like real. And I think like for this, it would have been interesting, but they didn't do that. There's another thing I just thought I thought maybe Luthen, they kept kind of teasing that maybe he's survived multiple times, and I was wondering if they were going to like cut to him at like the very end, like getting tortured or something. I was like, damn, that would have been crazy. But he gets a peaceful end here.
Right. It was about as merciful as you can get while dying in Star Wars. And I actually, for as thrilling as the staging of the sequences, once Clea gets into the room, I appreciated that things slowed down. She turns the blinds on. And I did think of Luke and Darth Vader. And this final goodbye between, that's a father and a son. This is a father and a daughter, basically. And the kiss she gives him on the head was very tender. And these, like we've been saying, these are two of the hardest people in the rebellion. The toughest motherfuckers. And I just like the quiet of the moment. I really liked the final shot, which, an iconic shot from Star Wars is Darth Vader on the funeral pyre, where he's like horizontal and on fire. And I don't know if it's trying to invoke that, but it's a really long fade out of Luthen horizontal. And it's almost befitting of a king. Like, this is the father of the rebellion. And I appreciated that he gets this strong moment, because especially when he doesn't get any honoring, any accolades following this on Yavin. He's almost this black sheep. Like, the show gave him his moment. So I just loved that final shot. I don't remember such a slow fade out in any of the other episodes. Usually it's a cliffhanger or it's something exciting, and this just felt more elegiac, so I kind of appreciated it.
I had a little bit of a different read on it. I think, I completely agree with everything you're saying. I kind of also think, it's just a hell of a way to go. Just lying there on this slab in this Imperial hospital. There's not even, and I like that it didn't go some kind of sappy, he wakes up and then he says some bullshit and then he's like, died. Like, it was just like, no,
go on, you got this.
No, please, God. But it was just willing to be like, now this guy stabbed himself and now he's just going to kind of die, and not say a word, and that's it. And then she's going to walk out of the room. It felt very real. But it's also this is how this guy goes out. Just lying here by himself, alone. I don't know. I think...
No, I think it can be both at once. I think that you're speaking to the reality of the situation. I'm speaking to the stylistic filmmaking that gives you the feeling of something more.
Yeah. So it was definitely it was indicating at the moment it was definitely important, and I think
the two being at odds creates the fascinating tension of the moment.
Yeah.
Sean, what do you think of the end of Luthen?
Yeah, I thought it was great, and it kind of echoes back to what we were saying before, where it's these type of people are maybe necessary to get the ball rolling and do the tough shit that the more moral people maybe won't do, but their fatal flaw is likely that they've probably begged Luthen over and over and over to just join them on Yavin and just to do it, and they basically say that in these later episodes where they're just he's just buried in Coruscant. He is addicted to Coruscant, thinking there's something more, and he was right that there was one more thread to pull on.
Yep.
Yeah, it's, if he didn't do that, they wouldn't have got the Death Star, and it's just such an interesting angle to go down. But how much of an interesting world would it have been if once, they think they get enough and he sees Yavin's kind of taken over, that if he's also sitting on that table. But that's never who Luthen is. He was never going to do that, and so for him, this is his crowning achievement and his moment. And when people who are just, counselors or senators sitting at a table talking shit about him, that's why Andor will scream and spit in their face, because they haven't sacrificed anywhere near what he has, even if he enjoyed sacrificing it.
Brutal. Bye-bye, Luthen. I want to shout out, before we move to the next episode, Elizabeth Dulau, who plays older Clea, phenomenal.
Yeah,
star making, I hope. And April V. Woods, the girl who played young Clea, thought was excellent.
Yeah, Elizabeth hasn't acted.
Yeah, I think she's fresh out of drama school.
Really?
Yeah.
What? She did the voice. She did the voice of Piebald Deer in Wicked. Don't know who that is.
Of course, Piebald Deer.
Who could forget?
No, it kind of reminds me of one of my favorite actresses, Marissa Abella, just picked up a BAFTA for Best Actress for industry. And in her speech, she said they cast her right out of drama school. And we know, like, a British drama school is top of the line. So hopefully it's not the last we'll see of Elizabeth Delau. And maybe we'll even talk about her in these next episodes. We'll take a little break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into episode 11.